Hey friends, it's Liv, Chief Food Wizard at Apocalypse. It's time for episode 3. Are you sick of boring canned food yet? Oh my god, same. It can be incredibly dull, and in difficult times like these, where you're stuck at home, watching Frozen 2 with your kids for the 500th time, maybe your husband's in the corner eating a can of creamed corn in a bathrobe. Anyway, you get the idea. You're probably ready for something a little bit more exciting. This recipe is for you if you can't get no satisfaction. Our carbonara-based Lifeforms pasta recipe is inspired by traditional pasta carbonara, but doesn't involve any of its original ingredients. We know Italians won't approve of this recipe, but extraordinary times call for a little bit of ingenuity. Besides, the real ingredients are pretty hard to get at the moment, as you've probably noticed.
Italy is one of my favorite places in the world, and I'm incredibly sad that they've been hit so hard by this disaster. I hope that this recipe keeps them in your thoughts and prayers.
We've pulled together this soul-satisfying recipe with some pantry items, condiments, and a couple of shelf-stable root vegetables. It'll hit the spot, we promise. It's also a recipe that pretty much anyone can enjoy because it's free of major allergens, is vegan, gluten-free, soy-free, and nut-free. Okay, well I'm pretty hungry, so let's make this thing. I know you're gonna love it. If you'd like to print or save the written recipe, be sure to visit our website, apocalypse.com, to get it. Also be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. We'll share a new recipe video with you each week. Our recipes are made with pantry items, shelf-stable foods, and occasionally foods will teach you how to grow for yourself. Now let's make this thing. Friends, the times they are changing, but remember, we're all in this together, even when we're standing far apart. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay frosty.
So let's start this recipe by making some vegan bacon. This is obviously instead of guanciale, which is the more traditional ingredient that we'd find in carbonara. We're going to make it with rice paper wraps. Have you ever seen this before? They're probably hiding somewhere in your cupboard from that one time you tried to make rice paper wraps or spring rolls. So all you really need to do is create a marinade for them. So we're going to use some soy sauce or coconut aminos. You can also use tamari. You need a little bit of maple syrup, about a tablespoon. We need to use some melted coconut oil. So this is a few tablespoons. Don't try to do this with solid coconut oil. I just put some solid coconut oil into a bowl and melted it in the microwave in about a minute. We need smoked paprika, a little bit of freshly ground black pepper, and a little bit of garlic. We'll also need some water in a bowl, which we're going to use to moisten the rice paper wraps. So first of all, I'm going to show you what you shouldn't do. Do not try to cut these the way I did. I stacked them, and then I cut into them together.
And that shattered like my dreams of security.
So I really highly recommend that you do it in a completely different way. It just can't withstand the pressure of the scissors. Don't do it. The way that I managed to do it was by just taking one rice paper wrap one at a time and cutting it. So basically I cut them quite wide because, as you can tell, even then they started to shatter a little bit and it just was a little precarious. So try to make them a couple inches wide and just make strips as close to the same width as you can. And I did this with a couple of sheets. Okay, let's start by clearing our rice paper dust out of the way. So you just need to grab a shallow dish. So basically, all you want to do now is pour all of your marinated ingredients into this dish.
Shit. Mother. Ugh.
Try to focus on this task better than my camera was able to focus on this bowl. I shared exact measurements for the spices I used on our website, apocalypse.com, where you can find the complete recipe and print it out. But feel free to be pretty heavy-handed because most of these wraps will barely absorb this marinade, so you really want to be bold with the spices. And whisk it together so that it's smooth and evenly incorporated. To whisk this up, I just used a fork. You could use a whisk. Okay, then you're going to need a parchment paper lined baking sheet, and to take our cut up strips of the rice paper wrappers, dip them in water, and then dip them on both sides into the marinade, and then just shake off the excess a little bit. Once you've done that, you want to place a piece carefully onto the parchment paper lined baking sheet, and then you want to repeat the process with a second strip of a comparable size, and actually stick it to the first strip. So basically you're making these double layered bacon strips, which are just rice paper wraps that have been marinated. And basically you just want to repeat this process until you use up all of your pieces. I used this double stack method because many people who have made this type of recipe before have recommended double stacking to avoid burning and also just to make the bacon a little bit crisper and chewier. You could try to do it with a single layer if you don't have a lot of these, but I can't vouch for how that is going to go. Okay, and this is what you're left with. I made, as you can see, about 7 bacon strips, which was more than enough for what I needed. And then I just put them straight into an oven that was preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I let them cook up for about 5 to 7 minutes until they start to bubble and crisp. They get quite dark quite fast. I actually put them back in the oven at first because I wasn't satisfied with the result. They ended up too crispy as a result, so I would really like trust your intuition, take them out around 5 minutes. Okay, so for the rest we're going to need to make our pasta now. So you need a few nets of fettuccine. You could use another pasta, like you could use spaghetti, or even like any kind of short pasta if you prefer. Our sauce consists of carrot and potato, which have been boiled until fork tender. Some of the leftover cooking water from those vegetables, so you could use this or you could use a broth. A little bit of ground tahini, tahini paste, some canned coconut milk. For spices, I use smoked paprika, garlic powder, ground turmeric, a little bit of salt, and a liberal amount of black pepper. Okay. So the first thing I recommend doing is boiling some water and preparing your pasta until very al dente. You really don't want to overcook this at all because you're going to actually reheat it in the sauce after it's been cooked. So I try to leave it too al dente at first, and then I drain the pasta water once it's reached that point, and take it off of the heat and just let it stay in the pot until I'm ready with the sauce. For the sauce, you're going to need a high-speed blender, and then everything is just going to be added right in. So we put in our vegetables, our broth, our coconut milk, our tahini paste is going to go in later, but we're going to use a little bit of reserved pasta water right now. We need some pepper, some salt, some garlic powder, a little bit of turmeric powder. This gives it a eggy kind of color as if you'd made real carbonara, and some smoked paprika, which makes it taste like you had some bacon or something cooking in the sauce. And then we're just going to blend it on high speed until it's completely smooth. This really only takes about a minute. I like to stop and start the blender also just to make sure that no bits didn't get blended in properly, so you can scrape it down in between blending. Once I'm convinced that it is thoroughly smooth is when I add in the tahini paste. I'm adding this in at the end because it's really not necessary. You don't have to use it. I just like it because it makes it taste a little bit cheesy, and it also makes it a little bit more unctuous. But leave it out if you want. You could also replace it with cashew butter if you don't have tahini. I don't recommend using any other nut butters though. What we're going to do is put our pasta back onto the heat and add in a little bit of sauce, just as much as we need to coat it and make it a little bit saucy. You don't want to drown it. This sauce serves about 4 people or 2 very large servings, and I only made a single portion of pasta, so it really wasn't necessary to use all of it. And then we're just going to plate it after it's heated up and the pasta is cooked through completely. We're just going to put it into a bowl and top each bowl of pasta with a couple of pieces of our bacon, depending on how many you made. And then I just give it a little bit of black pepper at the end just to finish it off. And there you have it. That's our carbonara-based Lifeforms pasta recipe. Not too shabby for a pantry recipe. Enjoy!